Late at night on a deserted street, a 22-year-old student quietly walked home after a long shift. He was balancing school and part-time jobs to care for his paralyzed mother. But when he saw an elderly man struggling with a broken electric wheelchair, he didn't hesitate. Within minutes his tired hands turned skillful, fixing the chair to the old man's surprise. He smiled, refused any thanks, and walked away, never knowing that moment would change his life forever. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. Jordan's alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m. just like every other morning for the past 3 years. The 22-year-old mechanical engineering student rolled out of his twin bed, careful not to make noise in the cramped apartment he shared with his mother. Through the paper-thin walls he could already hear her stirring in the next room. He pulled on his worn work boots and grabbed his backpack, the same one he'd had since high school, now held together with duct tape and determination. Inside were his textbooks, a thermos of instant coffee, and his toolkit. The tools were his most precious possessions, bought one by one with money scraped together from his delivery job. "Morning, Mama," Jordan whispered as he peeked into her room. His mother, Sarah, was already awake, struggling to transfer herself from bed to her wheelchair. The old manual chair creaked under her weight, its wheels worn smooth from years of use. She'd been in that chair for 8 years now, ever since the accident that changed everything for their family. "You don't have to whisper, baby, I'm up." Sarah's voice carried the same strength it always had, even though Jordan could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "You eating breakfast? I'll grab something at school." It was a lie, and they both knew it. There wasn't enough money for breakfast when rent was due next week. Sarah wheeled herself closer, reaching up to straighten his collar with hands that still shook slightly from the medication. "You sure you can't skip the delivery job tonight? You look tired." Jordan knelt down beside her chair, meeting her eyes. "Mama, we've been over this. The physical therapy bills aren't going to pay themselves." He forced a smile. "Besides, I like riding around the city, gives me time to think about my engineering projects." What he didn't say was that every time he saw her struggle with that ancient wheelchair, watching her arms strain to push herself up even the smallest incline, seeing her wince when the brakes failed to catch properly, it felt like a fire burning in his chest. That fire had been driving him through 3 years of mechanical engineering classes, through countless sleepless nights studying thermodynamics and materials science. He was going to build her something better. He was going to build everyone something better. "I love you, you know that." Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "Love you too, Mama." Jordan kissed her forehead and headed for the door, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. The morning flew by in a blur of lectures and lab work. Professor Martinez was explaining stress analysis when Jordan's phone buzzed with a text from his delivery app. "New order ready for pickup." His shift at Tony's Auto Repair didn't start until 6, so he had time for one quick delivery. 20 minutes later, Jordan was cruising through downtown on his beat-up motorcycle when he saw him. An elderly man sat motionless at the bottom of a steep hill, hunched over an electric wheelchair that clearly wasn't working. The man's silver hair caught the late afternoon sun, and Jordan could see his shoulders shaking, whether from cold, frustration, or something else, he couldn't tell. Jordan pulled over without thinking. "Hey, you okay over there?" he called out, jogging across the street. The old man looked up, and Jordan was struck by his eyes, sharp and intelligent but clouded with embarrassment. He was well dressed, wearing a crisp button-down shirt and slacks that probably cost more than Jordan made in a month. "I'm afraid I'm having some technical difficulties," the man said, his voice carrying a slight tremor. "This confounded machine just stopped, right here at the worst possible spot." He gestured helplessly at the hill stretching up ahead of him. Jordan crouched down beside the wheelchair, his trained eye immediately scanning the mechanical components. "Mind if I take a look? You know about these things." "I'm studying mechanical engineering, plus I work on cars and motorcycles." Jordan was already examining the control panel, noting the error code flashing on the small display. "What's it doing exactly?" "It just died. The display is showing some numbers, but I don't know what they mean." The man's frustration was evident in his voice, though he was trying to maintain his composure. Jordan recognized the error immediately. It was a motor controller fault, probably triggered by an overheating safety system. But what caught his attention was something else entirely. The wheelchair's design was unlike anything he'd seen before. The motor housing was sleeker, the control system more sophisticated, and there were features that seemed almost experimental. "Sir, this is going to sound weird, but this wheelchair, it's not like the ones I usually see. The engineering is really advanced." The old man shifted uncomfortably. "Is that relevant to fixing it?" Jordan grinned, pulling a small screwdriver from his toolkit. "Actually, yeah. See, most wheelchairs have a simple reset procedure, but this one," he carefully removed a small access panel and located the thermal sensor. "This one has a more sophisticated safety system. The motor overheated going up that last hill, so it shut down to prevent damage." Working quickly, Jordan bypassed the thermal lockout temporarily and reset the controller. The wheelchair hummed back to life. "But here's the thing," Jordan continued, his hands still working. "This is going to happen again if you hit another steep hill. The motor's running too hot." He made a small adjustment to the cooling system. "There, that should help with the airflow." The old man stared at him in amazement. How did you know to do that?" Jordan stood up, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Like I said, I study this stuff. Plus my mom's been in a wheelchair for 8 years. I've learned to fix just about everything that can go wrong with them." He paused, thinking about all the nights he'd spent researching wheelchair mechanics online, dreaming of building something better. "Though I've never seen one as advanced as this. What's your name, son?" "Jordan." "Jordan Hayes." The old man extended his hand. Samuel Whitaker. "And I cannot thank you enough for this." Jordan shook his hand, noting the firm grip despite the man's age. "No problem, Mr. Whitaker. Just glad I could help." Samuel reached for his wallet, but Jordan was already backing away. "Oh no, sir. I wasn't looking for payment, just helping out. But surely I can." "Seriously, it's fine. I just hope it gets you home safely." Jordan was already walking back toward his motorcycle. "Take care of yourself, Mr. Whitaker." As Jordan rode away, he couldn't shake the image of the old man's surprised expression. It wasn't just gratitude, it was something deeper. Recognition maybe. Like Samuel had seen something in him that Jordan didn't even see in himself. He had no idea that this chance encounter would change everything. Behind him, Samuel Whitaker sat in his wheelchair for a long moment, watching the young man disappear into traffic. He pulled out his phone and dialed a familiar number. "It's me," he said when the call connected. "I need you to run a background check on someone." "Jordan Hayes." "Yes, I'll spell that out." Samuel looked down at his wheelchair, the prototype his company had spent 2 years developing, the one that had stumped his entire engineering team when this exact problem cropped up during testing. A college kid had just solved it in 5 minutes. This was either the luckiest coincidence of his life, or destiny had just introduced him to someone very special indeed. Samuel Whitaker sat in his office long after the building had emptied. Past midnight, the city lights glittered across the skyline, but his eyes stayed locked on the silent wheelchair prototype parked in the corner. To anyone else it was a marvel of engineering, compact, sleek, state-of-the-art. To Samuel it was a reminder of failure. Months of research, millions of dollars, and a team of highly paid engineers hadn't solved its most critical flaw. Yesterday, on a random city street, a young man with grease on his jeans had fixed it in minutes. He leaned back, fingers drumming against the armrest of his chair, trying to make sense of it. Jordan Hayes, 22, calm under pressure, sharp-eyed, unshaken by technology no student should have understood. Samuel could still picture the boy crouched beside the chair, hands moving with confidence, his tone steady as he explained the overheating fault, not showing off, not grasping for recognition, just solving, and then walking away without taking a dime. Samuel's jaw tightened. He picked up the phone and called his secretary. "Elaine," he said, voice clipped, "I need a background check. Jordan Hayes, 22, mechanical engineering. Start tonight." There was a pause, then Elaine answered carefully, "Of course, sir. I'll have it ready in the morning." "No," Samuel interrupted. "Tonight." He ended the call before she could reply. For years he had prided himself on predicting people, sizing them up within moments. But this young man didn't fit the usual boxes, not an eager opportunist, not a polished prodigy, something else, something raw. The file arrived before dawn. A manila folder waited on his desk, placed there with Elaine's usual precision. Samuel flipped it open. The details hit harder than he expected. Jordan Hayes, raised by a single mother, Sarah Hayes, injured in an accident 8 years ago, wheelchair-bound since, income low, medical bills high. Jordan worked nights delivering food and weekends at an auto repair shop. He was carrying a full load of engineering classes, barely holding tuition together. Samuel's hand stilled on the page that showed a faded newspaper clipping. It was Sarah, younger, smiling despite the headline about the crash that had changed her life. His chest tightened. He remembered the nights after his own wife had died, long stretches of silence broken only by his son's restless footsteps in the hall. He had buried himself in work, convinced money could shield the boy from pain. But wealth only widened the distance. His son grew up spoiled, ungrateful, blind to the value of effort. Even now, as an adult, the boy called only when he wanted something. Samuel pressed the bridge of his nose, eyes stinging though he refused to blink them clear. The contrast wouldn't leave him, his own son, born into comfort, wasting every gift, and this young man, duct-taping his backpack, holding 2 jobs, still refusing charity when it was offered. Jordan's life was built on weight and struggle, yet he carried himself with quiet strength. He pushed the folder closed, and sat back in silence. The office was still except for the faint hum of the city below. He thought of Sarah in her old chair, straining up ramps, the same image Jordan must see. He thought of Jordan's hands on the prototype, adjusting what professionals had overlooked. It was more than skill, it was hunger, it was necessity. By afternoon, Samuel called Elaine back in. She stepped in carefully, sensing the heaviness in his voice. "You saw the report," he said. She nodded. "Yes, sir." She paused, searching for the right word. "Remarkable. I want his address," Samuel said. She hesitated. "Sir, perhaps it would be wiser to reach out formally. Invite him to the company, set a meeting. Keep it professional." Samuel's eyes cut to hers. "This isn't business, Elaine." His tone was final, not harsh but firm, like a door closing. She adjusted her glasses, then nodded slowly. "I'll have it ready for you." When she left, Samuel rolled closer to the window. The city stretched outward, alive with people rushing through their own battles. For years he had measured worth in profits, patents, and market share. But as he stared at the lights, he felt something shifting. He had spent a lifetime building machines to restore dignity, yet the boy who carried none of that power had shown him what real dignity looked like. The address came to him an hour later, a modest apartment complex far from downtown, the kind of place he hadn't seen in decades. His driver stood waiting with the car ready, but Samuel didn't rush. He sat with the slip of paper in his hands, feeling its weight. This wasn't a meeting. This was something else, something personal. He closed the folder, slid it aside, and reached for his cane. "Tell the driver I'll be down in 5, he said. For the first time in years, Samuel Whitaker felt nervous. He was about to walk, or rather roll, into a stranger's home, guided not by strategy or profit, but by something rarer, respect, and maybe just maybe hope. Jordan sat hunched over a computer in the campus library, the blue glow from the monitor washing over his tired face. He had logged in only to check his lab assignments, but a new message from the registrar's office flashed at the top of the screen. His stomach tightened even before he clicked it open. "Tuition balance overdue. If unpaid, enrollment for next semester will be suspended." He read it twice, then a third time, hoping the words would change. They didn't. His heart pounded, his throat dry. He minimized the window quickly, but the knot in his chest stayed. He tried to focus on his thermodynamics notes, yet every formula blurred. Numbers about heat and pressure collided with another number that burned in his head. The balance he couldn't pay. Jordan packed up his books and shoved them into his old backpack. The zipper caught, as it always did on the broken seam patched with duct tape. He yanked it free and slung it over his shoulder. His eyes stung, though he kept them fixed forward, as he left the library. By the time he got home, dusk had settled. The apartment lights were off, except for a dim lamp in the corner. Inside, he found his mother struggling in her chair, trying to push herself toward the kitchen. The right wheel locked halfway, forcing her to lean hard on her arms. Sweat dotted her forehead, her face pale with effort. "Mama, stop," Jordan said quickly, dropping his bag. He rushed to her side and steadied the chair. She froze, then tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "I just wanted to warm up dinner," she whispered. Her voice cracked, the strength fading fast. Jordan bent down and adjusted the faulty wheel, but before he could say anything more, Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She pressed her hands against her face, shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry, baby, I'm so sorry." He froze. His mother rarely cried. He had seen her fight through pain, through exhaustion, through endless medical bills without breaking. But now the words poured out of her in broken fragments. "You're killing yourself for me, working, studying, every night out there on that bike. I should be taking care of you, not the other way around. I ruined your life." Jordan's chest clenched. He dropped to his knees beside her chair, and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight. His face pressed into her shoulder, his body shaking though he tried to keep steady. "Don't say that," he whispered. His voice caught, but he forced it out. "Don't ever say that." Tears burned his eyes, but he turned his face so she wouldn't see. He didn't want her to know how close he was to breaking. He stroked her trembling hands, kissing the back of one. "You're the reason I keep going, Mama. You're not my burden, you're my fire." Sarah sobbed quietly against him. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the creak of the old chair, and the hum of the refrigerator in the background. Jordan wiped his face with his sleeve, breathing hard, trying to steady himself. He kissed her forehead, whispering, "It's okay, we'll be okay. I promise." But inside, he didn't believe it. Not anymore. At that moment, a knock sounded at the door. Both froze, startled. They weren't expecting anyone. Jordan stood quickly, brushing at his face and straightening his shirt before opening it. On the other side, sat Samuel Whitaker in his wheelchair, dressed sharply, but with a tired look in his eyes. A driver lingered in the hallway behind him, holding a clipboard. Jordan's mouth fell open. "Mr. Whitaker." Samuel gave a small nod. "May I come in?" Jordan hesitated, caught between shock and suspicion. He opened the door wider, allowing Samuel to roll inside. The older man's sharp gaze scanned the small apartment, the stacks of bills on the table, the quilt folded on the couch, the patched-up wheelchair beside Sarah. Sarah straightened in surprise, wiping her cheeks quickly. "Good evening," she said softly. "Mrs. Hayes," Samuel said, inclining his head. His voice carried a weight of respect. "I apologize for intruding. My name is Samuel Whitaker." Recognition flashed across her face. "Whitaker, from the medical company." "Yes," he confirmed. Then he turned to Jordan. "I wanted to see you, both of you." Jordan crossed his arms, uneasy. "Why?" Samuel looked at him steadily, then at Sarah, then back at him. "Because yesterday you solved a problem that has stalled my best engineers for months. And because I've seen enough to know you're fighting battles no one should face alone." Jordan shifted, his guard still up. "So what? You came here to thank me again?" "No," Samuel said firmly. He wheeled closer, his eyes clear and direct. "I came here because I believe you're someone worth investing in." The room went quiet. Sarah looked at her son, confusion written on her face. Jordan frowned, unsure if he'd heard correctly. Samuel folded his hands over the armrests of his chair. "I am the founder of Whitaker Mobility. The chair you repaired was a prototype my company has struggled with. You fixed it in minutes. That kind of instinct cannot be ignored." Jordan blinked, speechless. "I am offering you a full scholarship," Samuel continued. "Your tuition, your fees covered in full. And when the semester ends, a place as an intern at my company." Jordan's mouth opened but no words came. His chest rose and fell, his fists clenched at his sides. He glanced at his mother, whose hand covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes again. This time not from guilt, but from something closer to relief. Samuel's gaze softened. "You don't have to answer now. But understand this, you have a gift, and gifts like yours deserve room to grow." The weight of the words hung in the air. Jordan swallowed hard, staring down at the floor, fighting the flood of emotions crashing inside him. He thought of the email from the registrar, the unpaid bills, his mother's broken chair, the endless nights of exhaustion. For the first time in weeks he felt a door opening. Jordan adjusted the visitor's badge clipped to his shirt as he stood in the gleaming lobby of Whitaker Mobility. Sunlight poured through tall windows, bouncing off polished marble floors. The place smelled of coffee and fresh paint, nothing like the grease and gasoline of Tony's auto repair. For a second he felt out of place, clutching the strap of his patched backpack while employees in tailored suits swept past him without a glance. "Jordan Hayes," a woman asked briskly. She was in her 30s, sharp glasses, a tablet tucked under her arm. "Yes, ma'am," Jordan said. "Follow me, orientation starts upstairs." The first day moved fast: paperwork, safety briefings, introductions. By lunch Jordan sat alone in the cafeteria with a plastic tray of food, keeping his head down. Conversations buzzed around him, groups laughing and trading stories about product launches and design projects. He tried to eat quickly, but the stares lingered. He overheard two interns at the next table whispering, "That's the kid Mr. Whitaker brought in. Yeah, the charity case. Fixed a chair on the street, so now he gets a golden ticket." Jordan kept his eyes on his food, jaw tight. He knew this would happen, but hearing it still stung. He shoved the rest of his sandwich into his mouth and left before they could notice the flush creeping up his neck. The following weeks tested him harder than any exam. The engineering floor was a maze of computer stations, prototype parts, and whiteboards covered in equations. Jordan worked on small tasks at first, measuring components, running software simulations, writing test notes. He was careful, precise, but the room always felt heavier when he walked in. Conversations dropped, smirks appeared when he asked questions. One afternoon, during a meeting on motor durability, a senior engineer named Clark leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "With all respect," he said loudly, "why are we letting the intern pitch design tweaks? We've got years of experience on this team. He's got a scholarship and a story. That doesn't make him an engineer." The room went quiet. Jordan's face burned, his throat closing. He opened his mouth to defend himself, but the words stuck. Samuel wasn't in the meeting, and no one spoke up for him. He sank back in his chair, pretending to take notes while the others moved on. That night, he returned to the apartment later than usual. Sarah was waiting in her chair, a plate of reheated dinner on the table. She saw the slump in his shoulders as he dropped his bag. "Long day?" she asked gently. Jordan sat, pushing the food around with his fork. "They don't want me there, Mama. They think I'm just Mr. Whitaker's charity project." Sarah studied him, her expression soft but steady. "And what do you think?" He hesitated. "I think maybe they're right, maybe I don't belong." She wheeled closer, reaching out to cover his hand with hers. Her voice trembled but stayed firm. "Jordan, listen to me. You're doing something I never dared to dream of. You're taking the pain we've lived with and turning it into hope for other families. That's bigger than their opinions. Don't you walk away from that." Jordan met her eyes. She meant every word. He swallowed hard, blinking against the sting in his vision. Her hand was warm against his, fragile but steady. He nodded once, silently promising himself he wouldn't give up. The next morning, he arrived early and stayed late. He studied every blueprint he could access, digging into design flaws others overlooked. He spent lunch breaks in the testing lab, running prototypes through simulations. Some nights, he rode his motorcycle straight from deliveries to the workshop, scribbling sketches under the harsh fluorescent lights until security asked him to leave. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, an idea formed. A new cooling system for the motor that used cheaper, more durable materials. He paired it with a redesigned frame that distributed weight more evenly, reducing strain on the user's arms. The chair would cost less to manufacture and be safer for everyday use. One evening, Clark passed by and noticed Jordan hunched over a half-assembled frame, grease smeared on his forearms. "Still trying to prove yourself, kid," he muttered. Jordan didn't look up. "I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm trying to make something that works." Clark smirked and walked away, but Jordan kept his focus. When the prototype was ready for testing, Jordan rolled it onto the floor himself. His hands shook slightly as the team gathered around, skeptical eyes watching. He powered the chair on and guided it up the steep incline of the test ramp. The motor hummed steady, no overheating, no shutdown. The airflow system worked. At the top of the ramp, Jordan stopped and glanced back at the team. For the first time, silence filled the room, not because of doubt, but because of surprise. He climbed down, heart racing. "It's lighter, cheaper, safer, and it can be built with parts already in production." No one spoke for a moment. Then one of the junior engineers muttered, "Damn, that's actually good." Clark's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Later, Samuel appeared on the floor, wheeling himself slowly toward the new prototype. He ran his hand along the frame, inspecting every detail. Then he looked at Jordan, his expression unreadable. You built this? Jordan nodded. Yes, sir, on my own time. Samuel's eyes lingered on him for a long moment before he said quietly, good, very good. For Jordan, it wasn't just approval, it was a sign he was finally being seen for what he could do, not for how he got there. That night, back home, Sarah listened as he described the test in detail, his hands moving animatedly for the first time in weeks. She smiled through tears, pride shining in her tired eyes. See, baby, I told you, you belong there. Jordan smiled faintly, exhaustion etched into his face, but his voice carried a new strength. Yeah, Mama, maybe I do. The auditorium buzzed with energy. Rows of employees, reporters and partners filled the seats, cameras already trained on the stage. A giant screen displayed the new Whitaker Mobility logo alongside a single sentence, redefining freedom. Backstage, Jordan adjusted the lapels of his suit jacket. He had worn a tie only a handful of times in his life, graduations, a funeral, but tonight felt heavier. He glanced at the reflection in the mirror, 25 now, sharper features, but the same tired eyes. Except this time, the fatigue came with purpose. A stage manager poked her head in. Mr. Hayes, 5 minutes. Jordan nodded. He picked up a small note card from the table, then put it back down. He didn't need it. The words were already in his chest. Samuel appeared at his side, dressed in a dark suit, his chair gleaming under the lights. He looked older than the day they first met, but his eyes carried the same sharp clarity. Nervous? He asked. Jordan let out a breath. A little. Good, Samuel said, means it matters. He placed a hand on Jordan's arm, steady despite the tremor in his fingers. You earned this, son. Don't let anyone tell you different. Jordan swallowed, his throat tight. He nodded once, unable to say more. When they wheeled onto the stage together, the crowd erupted in applause. Flashbulbs popped. Jordan blinked against the lights, his eyes scanning the front row until he found her. Sarah sat proudly in her new chair, the one Jordan had spent months perfecting. The frame was lightweight but sturdy, the controls responsive, the seat molded for comfort. Her hands rested easily on the wheels, her posture taller than it had been in years. She caught her son's eye and smiled, tears brimming. The applause quieted. Samuel moved to the microphone first. For decades, Whitaker Mobility has led the way in innovation. But progress doesn't come from machines alone. It comes from people, from the hearts and hands of those who believe we can do better. He paused, his voice steady. Tonight I pass that belief, and this company, to someone who embodies it more than anyone I have ever met. Our new head of research and development, and my chosen successor as CEO, Mr. Jordan Hayes. The audience rose to their feet. Jordan froze for half a second, then stepped forward as the ovation washed over him. He gripped the podium, steadying his hands. I don't come from money or privilege, he began, his voice firm but low. I come from late nights fixing engines to pay hospital bills. I come from watching my mother push a broken chair up a hill and swearing to myself I'd find a way to make it easier. He glanced at Sarah, whose tears now slipped freely down her cheeks. This company gave me a chance when I had nothing but determination. And tonight I stand here because of that chance, and because of her. He gestured toward his mother. The cameras followed, capturing her wiping her eyes, smiling through her tears. The audience clapped again, softer this time, touched. Jordan continued, his voice gaining strength. We are not here to build expensive machines for the few. We are here to build safe, affordable, reliable chairs for everyone who needs them. That's our mission. That's our promise. The room shook with applause. Some employees who had once doubted him now stood clapping the hardest, their faces lit with pride. The ceremony moved on. A curtain lifted, revealing rows of the new wheelchair model Jordan had designed. Reporters rushed to take photos. Engineers explained the specs. Sarah rolled forward to test one herself, the crowd watching as she moved smoothly across the stage, the chair gliding without strain. Her smile was radiant, her hands steady for the first time in years. When the speeches ended, Jordan stepped away from the podium. People surged forward, reporters with microphones, employees wanting handshakes. He smiled politely, but his focus drifted to the side of the stage where a small group of families had gathered. A boy, maybe 8 years old, sat in an old chair that squeaked with every movement. His mother crouched beside him, adjusting a strap. The boy looked around, nervous, his small hands gripping the wheels. Jordan excused himself from the reporters and walked straight over. He knelt down to the boy's level, ignoring the flash of cameras behind him. "Hey buddy, how's the chair treating you?" The boy shrugged, eyes wide. "It's old, the wheel sticks sometimes." Jordan reached down, examining the worn axle. He pulled a small tool from his pocket. He always carried one, a habit from years of fixing things on the go. Carefully, he adjusted the bolt, testing it until the wheels spun freely. Then he looked up, smiling. "There, try it now." The boy pushed forward. The chair rolled smoother, easier. His eyes lit up. "It works." His mother covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Jordan gave her a reassuring nod, then ruffled the boy's hair. "You'll have something even better soon. I promise." The cameras flashed wildly, capturing the image of the new CEO kneeling in a suit, fixing a child's chair with his own hands. The crowd murmured, moved not by the staged presentation, but by the simple, honest act. Jordan stood slowly, brushing his hands on his pants. He looked across the room, meeting his mother's gaze again. She nodded at him, tears shining, pride etched into every line of her face. For Jordan, that was the only approval that mattered. As the night wound down, reporters filed their stories, and employees mingled, buzzing with excitement about the company's future. Samuel watched from his chair at the edge of the stage, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He had built an empire, but tonight he felt something greater, relief. Relief that he had found someone worthy to carry it forward. Jordan lingered near the stage, shaking hands, thanking people, answering questions. But his mind stayed fixed on the boy, whose chair he had just adjusted, on his mother in the front row, on every family who couldn't afford luxury but still deserved dignity. When the lights dimmed and the crowd thinned, Jordan finally allowed himself to breathe. He looked around the emptying hall, then down at his grease-stained hands, hidden beneath the suit. They were the same hands that had carried textbooks in a duct-taped backpack, repaired engines in dark garages, held his mother's trembling ones. Now those hands carried something larger, responsibility and hope.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.